Right now, I will be interviewing Lizette Berry, who is a senior researcher at the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town. The Children's Institute has put together a series of children and COVID-19 advocacy briefs which focus on how COVID has impacted children in a variety of ways. Lizette is one of the contributors to these advocacy briefs, and she will be talking to us today about the impact that COVID-19 has had on early childhood development. Welcome to RX Radio, Lizette. How are you today?
Hello, Talita. Thank you for the warm welcome. It is so great to be talking with you today and the listeners of Red Cross Radio. I look forward to this time with you.
Can you please tell us more about yourself and your work at the Children's Institute?
I started working at Red Cross Children's Hospital as a social worker something like 20 years ago. And from that point, I felt that I would really like to conduct research and make a contribution to the lives of children and families through research and policy work. And so my work at the Children's Institute focuses on early childhood development policies and programming, and I work with different organizations involved with early childhood development and also parenting support. So that's the focus of my work at the Children's Institute.
Now, it is said that children are at lower risk of COVID-19 infections. So, why do you think it's important to look at how COVID-19 has affected children?
Well, yes, it's true that children are at lower risk of COVID-19 infection. However, we must realize that COVID affects not just the health of individuals, but has a great impact on their overall well-being because it influences the economy, it influences different social aspects of our lives. And so for children, we find that because their families have been so greatly impacted, that the COVID-19 pandemic has really had very serious consequences for children's well-being. If we think about, for example, the fact that many people have lost jobs, many families have not been able to have regular access to food, and so food security has been greatly impacted. And as a result, the health and well-being of children has really been negatively affected.
What is early childhood development or ECD?
So, early childhood development really refers to the very early phases of life. And here we need to concentrate on the different areas of development. And we need to be creating environments to ensure that children are developing and growing well. And so some of the areas of development refer to, for example, the ability to learn. So cognitive development is important, social and emotional development. This is also the phase where children learn to speak, and language development is really central and critical at this stage. And then, of course, there's the areas of fine motor development and gross motor development. And so we really need to understand that children are holistic beings, and we want to be supporting their growth and development in all these different ways. And then, of course, there are the softer areas, if you like. So we need to be aware of children's spiritual development and also give them input and allow opportunities for their spiritual growth and understanding. And these are really important years for children, and it's the period where they establish themselves, their identity, and it lays the foundation for their future well being.
How has COVID and the lockdown impacted children with regards to early childhood development?
So, as you can imagine, COVID has had a really horrific impact on the lives of children. And if we think about ECD, we know that there are many programs and ECD centers that provide support to young children, and they are places of safety. They also provide nutrition on a daily basis. And during lockdown, many of these centers were closed down for very long periods of time. And this meant that children didn't have access to these safe places where they were receiving learning and stimulation and receiving a daily meal. And so this did have a negative impact on young children and also on their caregivers who really rely on having this places of safety and places of care where they can take their children every day. And these places enable parents to go to work or to go and seek work if they are unemployed. And so they really are a strong support for families. And the lockdown really created a situation where for caregivers and children no longer had access to places of safety and care.
What long term effects could this have for children?
In terms of long-term effects, I think if we consider that young children and their families were faced with increasing levels of hunger, increasing poverty, that it was a very stressful situation for many families during lockdown. And certainly we know that stress can have negative impacts on young children, and it can have an impact on their development over a long period of time. Some of the other impacts certainly relate to the closure of ECD centers, and this just means that children didn't have access to regular stimulation that they were used to receiving. And so, over a period of time, this does mean that this would negatively impact on children's educational progress and their cognitive development that we spoke about earlier. Although one hopes that there would be some recovery and some growth and development that continues to happen with the situation having improved, I think we do still feel worried about the long-term impacts of the closures and certainly of the stress and the food insecurity among families.
Lizette, what are other solutions for this issue and how can we better support ECD moving forward?
I think there has been some good news over this period of COVID and the lockdowns, and that is that many NGOs and faith-based organizations developed innovative ways to reach young children and their families. So there has been some digital platforms and sort of WhatsApp groups that have been formed where, for example, ECD teachers would share material and share learning materials with parents to help them actually continue with learning in their home environments. And so there are definitely ways in which children can be supported when they are at home. And I think that we really need to begin to focus on support for parents and to really help parents understand that they have a very critical role to play in supporting their own children's development and giving them opportunities to learn through everyday things. And, by just identifying colors in their home environment or counting household objects, there are very clear ways in which parents can get involved in teaching and helping their young children to learn. So there are certainly ways in which we can help families that are struggling. We also know there has been food drives and just support for families that are struggling in terms of access to daily meals.
Now, today we are celebrating Women's Month, and I would like to ask you, is there a message you would like to give to all the girls and women listening right now?
So, in recognition and celebration of Women's Month, I would really just like to encourage all girls and women who are listening, and just to say, be who you are, and know that you can make a difference in every situation you find yourself. And I want to just encourage you to continue to learn, to continue with your education, wherever that may be, and to really strive to be the best person you can be.
Thank you so much, Lizette, for taking time and allowing me to interview you. I really gathered a lot from this information, and I hope you have a great day further.
Thank you so much, Talita. I enjoyed chatting with you today, and I wish you well and all the best to you and your team at Red Cross Radio, and to the listeners. Please take care and all the best. Ciao for now.
You are listening to RX Radio. For and by children. RX Radio. RX Radio rocks.